Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I'm in conversation with Melanie Costa. Melanie is retired from our military, and she is a certified peer support specialist at the VA. Welcome.
Thank you.
What branch did you serve in?
I did 4 years in the Marine Corps and then 6 years in the Army Reserve.
Yes. Okay, and when was that?
I did 95 to 99 in the Marines, and then 2000 to 2006 in the Army Reserve.
Okay, and we're going to talk about your journey to becoming a peer support specialist.
Yes.
And you brought some of your poetry.
Yes.
I'd like you to read a poem to start.
Okay. It's called We Were at War. We were at war, supposed to have each other's backs. Never did I think the enemy would be one of my own. You took my trust, innocence, and self-worth in a matter of seconds, with no regard and no remorse. Walked away like I was nothing, leaving me with 3 choices. Shoot you, act like it never happened, or kill myself. I chose to act like it didn't happen in order to survive the war, by numbing my emotions even more than before. Then I came home, it all came crashing back, and I needed to numb my brain again, drink after drink. Now I'm learning, realizing it wasn't my fault, and you are to blame. You took advantage of the situation, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I'm taking back my strength, self-worth, and my innocence from you. You no longer will keep me prisoner in my body and mind. You no longer have the power. I have overcome, and I stand here a stronger woman for the battle I have won.
Very strong woman.
Thank you.
What comes up for you when you read that?
It makes me feel good to be able to read it. For many years, I never told anyone until 4 years ago, and I came back from Iraq in 2004. So it was a very long time to hold that all in, and to write my poetry, especially about this. It gives me freedom.
I was going to say, I feel like liberty, like freedom. Yeah.
It's very, I get out the anger and how I felt, and it definitely gives me, it empowers me. And to share it with others, especially those who have also unfortunately been assaulted while in the military.
Assaulted in the military, yeah. So you're speaking to your sexual assault.
Yes.
And when I hear that, I think of institutional betrayal as well.
Yes.
So that refers to wrongdoings perpetrated by an institution upon individuals dependent on that institution, including failure to prevent or respond supportively to that wrongdoing, but the individuals, like sexual assault, committed within the context of the institution.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to speak to that a little bit and your experience reporting this or not reporting it actually, and for reasons, for many reasons, not reporting it?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I was the only female on my team, and we were attached to a unit that only had 3 other females. So I was on a base with around 300, 350 people, other soldiers, and 4 were female. So I felt like no one would believe me. And I didn't want to have the backlash be on me and not on him, because they know him and I'm just a reservist attached to them. So that was a big reason I held it in and didn't say anything. And then that was, when I got back, that was part of my guilt, because I felt like I should have, to prevent this person from further doing it.
And you were overseas, right?
Yes, I was in Iraq.
Yeah. So let's back up to what inspired you to go into the military and then work our way up to Iraq.
All right. So strangely enough, I was a little kid on vacation with my family, and we went to Gettysburg. and we went to where the big battle was in the field, and there was something about it that captured me.
Wow.
And I decided right then I'm going to be in the military.
How old were you, Melanie?
I think I was like 8, 9. So I was little. And so that was always something. And then high school, I played sports. And then I was like, oh, we'll see. And then I didn't go right in to the military. I had a scholarship to a 2-year school to play basketball.
Oh.
So I went to New Hampshire, to Hesser College in Manchester. Played, and after my first full year, I came home and decided I'm going to go to the recruiting station.
Okay.
Went right to the Marines, and I said I wanted to sign up. I said, but I have to finish my first year because my parents will kill me if I don't.
Oh.
I said I have to finish college.
Okay.
So that I did it, went home, and I said, hey, I joined the Marine Corps today. Both my parents were like, what?
Really?
But they were proud of me. So I graduated in May of '95, and a week later I left for Paris Island for a Marine Corps boot camp. So,
wow.
So there was no celebrating.
Yeah. What was your childhood like?
Playing in the woods. I grew up in Scituate. Always outside, doing something. Moving railroad tires to help my dad. I don't know if that was punishment or helping. But we'd do that. I hung out with a lot of friends and things like that. Every summer we had a big family party. So yeah, it was.
So happy, connected.
Yeah.
Okay, and then off to New Hampshire you go.
Yeah.
Decide you want to enter the military, and now you're off to
Paris Island.
Yeah. Then what?
And then I spent 3 months in Paris Island.
Okay.
In the hottest months of the year.
Yeah. What were you thinking? We'd like to
Be there.
Why did I do this?
I was, pretty much that night that I arrived, and they came onto that bus screaming and yelling. I was like, oh, what did I do? But I would say it was one of the proudest moments.
Yeah.
To graduate, and my parents were able to be there. And it was just a big moment. My dad served in the Army. He was in Vietnam. He was a medic.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
So it was big for him, too. I'm sure he wanted me to go in the Army, not the Marines, but, but he was, very happy. And then I was home for a little bit, and then I went to 29 Palms in California.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Which is really desert.
That's the desert.
Preparing myself, I guess. And that's where I did my occupation training. So I learned to be a communication center operator. So I did that, and then I ended up at Camp Pendleton.
Okay, now how old are you now?
I was 19.
Wow, so you were 19, you're at Camp Pendleton?
Yeah.
Okay, then what?
So I get to my duty station, and the first thing they say is, so you're not going to work in a comm center? You're going to do something else? And I'm like, what? I just spent 3 months in the desert. So I was in an actual data comm platoon, which I had no idea what. They're like, oh yeah, computers, and I'm like, what? No, that's above me. I'm like, absolutely not. But I didn't work on the computers, but I did more of, I used radios across computer waves. So I would get dropped on top of a mountain with radio Marines, and I'd send data across computer signals up on top of a mountain. So it was adventurous,
Putting it mildly, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So I did that for 4 years. Said, all right, I'm good. Came home.
Okay.
6 months later, I was like, I missed the military.
What made you miss it?
That camaraderie. And just, I think the structure of it all.
Okay.
It just, but I think more that camaraderie of people having your back and working with you and understanding. So I went to the recruitment station again.
Okay.
And said, okay. And I didn't want to be a truck driver, so that in the Marines. So I said, all right, I'll go to the Army Reserve. And crazily enough, I joined without knowing what my job was.
Okay.
And then they said, all right, you're going to be civil affairs.
Okay. Now, how old are you at this point, Melanie?
At this point, I am 23, 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're about 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they told me I didn't have to go to boot camp, which I thought was the greatest thing. I was like, all right. I was taking classes at Rhode Island College. So I did the 1 weekend a month.
Okay.
My first drill, I again said, what am I doing? Very different than Marine Corps.
How so?
Going to the Army Reserve.
How so?
I walked in and everyone was calling everyone by the first name, and I was like, what? No, there's rank. What? You don't call anyone by their first name. So I was like, sir, sergeant, and they're like, oh no, call me. And I'm like, no, I can't. But I got used to that, and I still serve, because it was just foreign to me. It was very, in the Marines, it's very structured. And then I was in the reserves.
What were you studying, Melanie? Sorry to interrupt, but what were you studying at Rhode Island College?
I was, so I had received an associate's degree in criminal justice.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll do some more on that. And then I decided, all right, I'm going to get out of school. So I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield, entering claims. And then I got called up to go to Kosovo as a peace mission. So we went there. And we just would go out in town, see what they needed, if they needed something from like a government organization to help rebuild and things like that. So it was interesting, and it was eye-opening to see
tell me.
how they lived. So a lot of homes, not from us, from fighting, had, still big holes in them. There were still landmines out in the fields, so they were like, do not go out in the fields. So it was just like, wow. And the thing I remember is they really, because it was Serbians and Albanians, and the fact that they still hated each other so badly. And it was just like, okay, this is supposed to be a peacekeeping. And no matter what side you talk to, each person had like a different reason. And the majority of them were from like 200 years ago, when some war with, nope, the Serbs won. And then 2 years later, nope, the Albanians won. This is all, and it was just like, okay. I'm like, you guys are never gonna like see eye to eye, because each one had a different reason. So it was very different, but I was happy to go there. And then I came home. I was there for 8 months. I came home, I left in January, I came home in like near the end of August.
Okay.
October, I went to Germany for training. That's the rain season, apparently.
Okay.
The mud over there is like no other.
What's better, the desert or the mud?
Sometimes I'm like, yeah, the desert is mud, because the mud, I don't know what kind of mud they had, but it would like just suck your feet in, and it was just like, oh, this is fun. I came home, and it was right before, a few weeks before Christmas. and my dad called me and was like, hey, your sergeant is trying to get a hold of you. Here's the number. I'm like, what? And at the time, I was at my girlfriend's house, who I served with her sister and her boyfriend. So I call, and at the same time they're getting a phone call, and I'm like, called, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, yep, you have orders. You will be going to Iraq next month. And I was just like, oh, okay. So they also got the same phone calls. And so everyone that was there was like, what's going on? You know? And so I came back into the room, they got off their phones, and it was like, the whole family's just staring at us, and we had to say, we have orders to deploy.
Wow.
So it was not the same as going to Kosovo, obviously, because of everything that, so it was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to war. So it was difficult to leave and say bye to everyone, and we went down to...
what was that like, too, knowing the mission was so different?
It was hard. Not that I wanted to think I wouldn't come back, but like hugging my parents, I didn't know what would happen. And so it was very different. And one of the guys that was on my team, he's my buddy, I went up to his mom and said I will bring him back safely. So I made that promise, and when my assault happened, that is something that popped in. I said I would bring him home safely. And I said I can't change that.
Yep.
So we were at Fort Bragg for almost 2 months.
It was good that you made that promise, huh?
Yeah.
That was
probably the thing that...
a safety plan,
yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. So they said, all right, you guys are leaving. We got on a plane. It was a regular airplane, which was weird. All of us in full gear. There were stewardesses and everything. I'm like, this is strange. I have a weapon, a helmet. I'm like, we landed in Kuwait. We got off the plane, we ate something, went back to like relax in the tent. And all of a sudden sirens started going off, and you could hear things blowing up, and they were like getting in the bunker, and I'm like, oh, this is my first, well, I haven't even made it 3 hours. So we got in there and they shut it, and it was just like, okay, this is my welcoming, here I am. So we were there for a few weeks, because we had all of our vehicles came on one of the ships. Then they got there, and then I found out my team and another team were leaving the rest of our crew, and we were being attached to the 110 Cavalry. And I was like, oh, okay. So we had to say bye to everybody and go meet up with them, and they were like, okay, we're leaving tonight. And it was like, oh, they're like, make your last phone calls home and you're going in. And it was like, not that it wasn't real already, but that like really made it even more. So I called home, made my last phone calls, got myself ready, and then we went in. And it was quite scary, because we went in at night and on a regular, like their highway, which was just 2 roads, and cars were just driving by us. And I'm like, well, I can't see anything because it's dark, and they have lights on, and I just hoped that nothing was being pointed at me as they were going by me. So it was
frightening.
Quite frightening, my first evening in
I can imagine.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then do you want to take us up to what happened?
Sure.
Okay. Which I can imagine would be more frightening.
Yes. So I had made it almost a full year. And in January, I was in Beijing, Iraq. That's where we finally ended up. And then we were with 3-6 Armor. And I had guard duty. I got ready, and it was the overnight into the morning shift. So I got up there, and it was like a little pyramid, but it was flat on top. And we had our little shack. And it was just me. So I was up there for a few hours, just like to do. And I was sitting inside it, looking forward, and I heard someone coming, and I'm like, so I turned and looked, and it was a captain that I had talked with. He worked the radios for when we went out. He would answer us if there was trouble and stuff. So we were just talking, like we always did. And then I turned to look out the front just to do a quick sweep. And as I turned, he grabbed me from behind and threw me to the ground, and I froze. It felt like I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arm, like nothing. And the way he had pushed my flak vest up, so it was like here. And the next thing I know, he was sexually assaulting me. And as quick as it started, it ended, and he just walked out. And I still couldn't move. And then I heard something, so I didn't know if he was coming back. So I fixed myself. I got up, and I grabbed my weapon, but it wasn't anyone. And then I sat, and that's when the thoughts went through my head. And I really was all set to just pull my trigger. And then I started thinking, and I decided, nope, just shove it down.
I tried to get some statistics on military sexual assault, and they're difficult.
Yes.
In some reports, it looks like the incidences of sexual assaults are going up, or is that because they're being reported more? I don't know if you have any clarity on that.
I would say because it's being reported more. In the last few years, I know for men it has doubled.
Wow.
So
maybe they're feeling more comfortable reporting it, not necessarily that there's more violence.
So more reporting it. Some have good outcomes. Some do not. Some get the usual, well, we're going to move you to a different unit, and things don't happen to the actual perpetrator. Which then makes it very hard if you know someone and then it happens to you. If that's how you know it's going to happen, then why should you report it? It's still very difficult. Even when, veterans come in for care, it's like a taboo. Like, nope, you don't bring it up, especially for men. They definitely, nope, I can't talk about that. And it's very difficult to talk about it for the first time. But I will say the first time I did and let it all out, I felt so much lighter.
I bet, yeah. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the lightness, where you sought treatment, and your healing.
So, I've been a peer for 11 years. 4 years ago, I thought I stuffed my assault far enough down that I would never have to deal with it. It came roaring back.
Right. So you were coping, and
Yeah.
then you started to heal.
Yeah.
You made that little shift.
Yeah. And then it came, just flashes of it, nightmare, all different things like that. And I got to the point where I was either going to go back to drinking or I was going to kill myself. And I decided I have to get help. I didn't want to go around here because I didn't want to make any vendors that I'd ever worked with who were at treatment feel awkward with me being there. So I decided I would go to Kansas.
Oh.
Topeka, Kansas. And so they had a 7-week program, and I took the bus, of all things. So I really needed treatment by the time I got to Topeka. But I got there, really felt like a fish out of water. You know, everyone telling me I'm from New York, and I'm like, no, Rhode Island. And I remember going to the first group. There were 3 other females in it, and that was the first time I said it all. And it was mixed emotion because I was scared more than anything to talk about it, because I knew it would make it real, but I did, and it was extremely hard. At that point, no one in my life knew. So then I had to make those phone calls and say, this is why I'm here. I wrote a letter to my parents because I knew I couldn't make that phone call. It would be entirely too difficult. So I wrote a letter. I wrote exactly everything that happened. And then I was scared to death to call home because I was like, did the letter get there? Did it not? But I called and my mom said, I got your letter yesterday. And my heart dropped. And she, you know, was just, I'm so sorry that happened to you. She had my dad read it. He cried. But I felt not good. I mean, it sounds weird that I felt good, but it felt good because it was out.
And you had support.
Yeah. So I worked on it more. Came home, and I went back to my usual, I will immerse myself in work. Yeah.
Okay. So we are down to a minute.
Okay.
And I'd like to close with one of your poems.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to sign off. You're watching State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo. We're going to have Melanie finish out with one of her poems.
This is called She. She was drowning. No one saw me struggle. She tried to hide things away, but I couldn't forget. She said I'm good, but I was not. She becomes engulfed in the storm. It's raging inside my mind. She forgets to smile and laugh. My body aches in pain. She is grasping at the ear. I'm in the darkness. She is falling down again. I will pick myself up. She is still struggling badly, for I'm gaining strength. She will fight this, for I'm a warrior.